Hello YouTube. The first Russia-US summit of the Biden presidency will take place in Geneva, Switzerland on the 16th of June 2021. The upcoming meeting of the US and Russian presidents Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin in Geneva will discuss the possibilities of joint strengthening of international security as well as strategic stability and arms control. Vladimir Putin, speaking on the air of Russian Channel 1 about the expectations from the meeting with Biden, noted that he does not expect any breakthroughs. The fact that we will meet, we will talk about the possibilities of restoring bilateral relations. We will talk about issues that are of mutual interest, and by the way, there are many of them, and this is itself is not bad. I expect a positive result. I hope that the conditions will be created for further steps to be taken to normalize relations and resolve the issues facing the countries and the entire world community, Putin said. The meeting is where Biden and Putin are slated to discuss issues like Iran and North Korea's nuclear capabilities, Syria, the Arctic, strategic stability, arms control, climate change, COVID-19 and more. Of course they will discuss UFOs and USOs. Of course neither of them will admit it openly. But considering Pentagon's long-awaited UFO report to the United States Congress due this month, they will certainly discuss this subject and plan for future actions. But let's see what Russian generals say and look at one of them with greater focus. Well, a Russian newspaper Gazeta.ru asked the Russian military what exactly the heads of the two countries would talk about. The selection of the generals was not done by chance. Interviewed by Gazeta.ru, a very interesting publication by the way, the military leaders agreed that the issues of strengthening international security as well as strategic stability and arms control will be a priority at the upcoming meeting of the presidents of Russia and the United States in Geneva. Now, the former deputy chief of the main operational directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Valery Zaparenko, believes that at the meeting, the leaders of the two countries can touch on the operation of the Treaty of the Reduction and Limitation of Strategic Offensive Weapons, START 3, despite the fact that the document was recently extended by the parties for 5 years. In fact, START 3 keeps Russia and the United States from the nuclear arms race. According to it, Russia and the United States have reduced their nuclear arsenals so that the total number of weapons does not exceed 700 intercontinental ballistic missiles on submarines and strategic bombers, as well as 1,550 warheads and 800 deployed and non-deployed launchers. However, at the end of this treaty in 2026, Zaparenko believes the extension of START 3 will have to be approached on a completely new basis. Other nuclear powers should also be involved in this agreement, since the content of the modern era does not consist solely in the confrontation between the United States and the Russian Federation. And the nuclear arsenals of many other world powers are growing every day. It is quite possible that the meeting of the two leaders on June 16 will also discuss the new content of such agreements, said General Zaparenko. In addition, there are always questions about the reliability of their own stocks of nuclear weapons. For example, the other day Russia announced a test of the reliability of nuclear weapons. At the same time, it is emphasized that all explosive experiments will be non-nuclear in this regard, since Russia signed the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 1996 and ratified it in 2000. The United States has similar problems. As for the former deputy commander-in-chief of the Russian Air Force for the CIS Joint Air Defense System, Lieutenant General Aitech Bizhnev, he noted it is quite possible that the two leaders will discuss the proliferation of nuclear weapons, fissile materials, and nuclear technologies at the meeting. Currently, such problems are quite acute, according to Lieutenant General. Unfortunately, the trend of the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, in particular nuclear weapons, is evident today. Okay? Now, here's what another very important Russian general said. It is quite possible that the presidents of the United States and Russia will talk about the problem of hypersonic weapons. Today, the combat capabilities of hypersonic cruise missiles can at least be equated with tactical nuclear weapons. Moreover, combined with hypersonic technologies, already strategic nuclear weapons may well cause a new arms race and make the world even more unstable, said the former chief of the General Staff of the Air Defense Forces, Colonel General of Aviation Igor Maltsev. According to the military commander, the fight against hypersonic cruise missiles is very costly in terms of the forces, means, and resources involved. And in the case of massive use of such weapons, it is hardly possible to repel such a strike with the required efficiency. Let's see who the hypersonic weapons are directed to. Now, that's my question. But now I want to talk about Colonel General of Aviation Igor Maltsev and UFOs. A few words of introduction about him. Igor Maltsev was awarded the Order of the Red Star, and in 1970, Maltsev was appointed commander of the 17th Air Defense Division in Turkmenistan. About 1,000 kilometers of air borders were under the reliable protection of this air defense compound. After graduating from the Military Academy of the General Staff in 1975, Igor Maltsev served as a deputy commander of the 4th Separate Air Defense Army in the Urals, then commanded the 11th Separate Air Defense Army in the Far East. And I told you about UFO sightings in those areas. In 1984, Colonel General Maltsev became the first Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Air Defense Forces and headed the main headquarters of the Air Defense Forces. He became a top guy in the armed forces of that country. After leaving the service and joining the reserve in 1991, he worked at the enterprises of the aviation radio industry, was a member of parliament, and conducted active expert work. And he was an expert. This was one of the top Soviet military officers who eagerly discussed UFOs. He had a good reason to. I mention him in my books and lectures through the years. I collected his revelations from the early 1990s. Also, the late Marina Popovich, Soviet test pilot, author, and former spouse of Pavel Popovich, the Soviet cosmonaut who helped protect and promote Soviet UFO researchers. She was my acquaintance. I met her in Los Angeles in 1991. We corresponded, and she talked about me in her books. She also talked about Colonel General Igor Maltsev. He collected fascinating reports about UFO sightings and encounters by Soviet military personnel, aviators. All these reports were provided by the Chief of the General Staff of the Air Defense Forces, Colonel General of Aviation Igor Maltsev. He also commented on the events. Many newspapers then published his comments, and this is how I found them too, and in other ways. And he was most likely in direct contact with the famous and brave female Soviet test pilot Marina Popovich, who was a dedicated UFO researcher for years. And she observed UFOs herself in Central Asia and elsewhere. Here's an excerpt of what Maltsev shared. I am not an expert on UFOs, so I can only summarize the data and make my guess. According to eyewitnesses, the UFO was a disk with a diameter of 100 to 200 meters. On its sides were two pulsing lights. When object was flying in a horizontal plane, the line of lights was parallel to the horizon. When moving vertically, it turned perpendicular to the ground. In addition, the object rotated around its axis, made a snake flight in both the horizontal and vertical planes. The UFO then hovered above the ground, then flew at a speed of 2-3 times faster than the speed of a modern fighter. All observers noted that the speed of the UFO's flight depended on the flickering of the side lights. The more often the lights flashed, the higher the speed was. The object flew at an altitude of approximately 1,000 to 7,000 meters. The movement of the UFO was not accompanied by any sounds and was characterized by amazing maneuverability. It seemed that the UFO was completely devoid of inertia. In other words, according to him, they somehow get along with gravity. To date, the Earth's mechanical devices hardly have such capabilities. Ask the American pilots from the videos featured not long ago. Anyway, in an interview with Literaturная Gazeta, they admitted that there really are some phenomena that appear to us in the form of UFOs, the nature of which we do not know. He stated if we take seriously the hypothesis of the existence of UFOs as a product of highly organized mind, much more advanced than our civilization, then any struggle with such objects and their crews before finding out their intentions will be fruitless, and moreover can lead to an unpredictable response. Incomprehensible phenomena should be studied, not shut down. Well, in the conditions of increased publicity after August 1991, many important data on the latest types of Soviet weapons were declassified, but representatives of the Ministry of Defense remained as taciturn, as careful about UFOs as before. And this is evidenced by the vague statements made by various officials in 1992 and 1993. Now, the selection of Maltsev to make comments on the pending meeting of Putin and Biden is not coincidental. He is well advanced in age, but he also knows quite a lot. It's just we are not told everything he thinks about that meeting, I am sure. Maybe President Putin should take this retired general along to Geneva to consult him. It is my belief that UFOs and USOs will be discussed at the meeting by both presidents, and the dates and the timing is not coincidental. I think they want to refine what is going to be actually released in the United States as well. It's not a one-country project to know and react to what UFOs are doing globally. So I am sure it will be a very productive meeting, and the issue of inexplicable UFOs and USOs will be discussed. After all, President Putin did mention that they will talk about issues that are of mutual interest. And there may be more information coming in the days before the so-called release of information to the US Congress in the United States. And of course, I will tell you about any such developments. Thank you for your attention. I will make more videos on the subjects of Russian ufology and of course Eurasian paranormal. If you can support my research, I ask that you please do so. You can see the links to my channel, and thank you for your attention as always.